Hello, my name is Janet, and this is Two Girls and a Bottle of Wine. Because men like boobs and girls like wine, this is a very special edition of Two Girls and a Bottle of Wine because we have some wine experts on the line, and they're going to teach us all about wine. So without further ado, here we go. Well, today I have a very special guest. His name is Dan Decker, and he's from Vino, Wine and Spirits, correct?
Correct.
And where are you guys located?
We're located in upper New York State, about 90 minutes north of New York City.
Perfect. How did you find Two Girls and a Bottle of Wine?
Twitter.
Gotta love Twitter. And how long have you been in the wine industry?
About 7 months.
7 months. So you're kind of new. But you have more education than I do. I'm sure of it. When I go to buy wine, I buy by the bottle, what it looks like. The prettiest bottle. You
know, you would be, I think, incredibly surprised. I think more people do that than not, to be totally honest. Which is why the label, you know, even when people come in trying to sell us stuff, because obviously there are people that sell us stuff to sell to other people because we're a retailer, but even when they come in, they'll be like, you know, the bottle on this one, the artwork is great. People love it.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. That makes me feel a little bit better. Now, today you wanted to talk about California wines, correct?
Correct.
Let's start as though I know nothing about wine, because I kind of don't. When it comes to California wine, what is the difference in California wine versus all of the other wine on the shelves?
I think California is at least known for... and this is like a very broad-based way of putting it, but California is known for being very, very fruit-forward. And so, like, when you drink it, when you take your first sip, it's like, whoa, fruit. And people tend to very oftentimes like that. Reviewers will refer to it as, like, fruit bombs or something. I don't know. I mean, that's how they talk about the wine and stuff. But really, that's what it boils down to, is just being fruit forward.
And there's many different kinds of California wine, right? Yeah,
so California is producing, you know, Chardonnay. They're also producing Cab. You have the full gamut of a lot of the different grape varietals that they're producing there, from Cab, Syrah, Chardonnay, Pinot, a lot of those. I haven't seen a lot of Malbecs out of California. Not to say that they don't do it. Those are the more common ones. Like a Sauv Blanc also is another common one that you'll see a lot of. And
there's different areas of where they grow the California wines, right? Like Napa Valley is a common place that you hear of, correct?
Yeah, Napa Valley is kind of like one of the premier places growing grapes and producing wine, you know, in the state. But, you know, there's lots of stuff from all over the state, and it really just depends. The weather and the terroir, like the growing conditions, are really, really big factors in what's produced and where it comes from. You know, you have stuff like Turley, which is like an Old Vine Zinfandel, and that has a very different style from, like, you know, a Napa Cab, which is also different from something from, say, like Santa Ynez Valley or something like that. So you have all these different regions with all these different growing conditions, which really influence, you know, what the end product is.
And I'm more of I like the sweet wines. So what kind of California wine should I kind of lean toward when I walk into my local liquor store?
I mean, what you like. You know, you'll do better off with a Pinot Gris probably than, I'm trying to think of something that's, you know, super dry that's coming out of California. Nothing's floating up right now, but, you know, probably gravitate toward a Pinot Gris or something like that. It's going to be a little fruitier, a little sweeter.
And what is your favorite California wine?
My favorite California wine, at least right now, is Stuart Sellers Napa Hollis, or however they phrase it. It's from Napa Valley, and it is a Cabernet Sauvignon.
Do they have a lot of vineyards in the upper New York area?
There are a lot of places producing wine in New York State. Brotherhood Winery is one of the oldest wineries in the country, I think. They produce, you know, a good amount. Millbrook Winery is another one that's right near us. It's probably one of the closest ones. But yeah, they have them kind of all over the state. The Finger Lakes is one of the better known wine producing regions in New York State. And they're known especially for, you know, their Rieslings. And
I have recently been liking the cupcake wines. They have the Red Velvet and the Moscato.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about what I'm drinking when I'm drinking those?
So the Moscato is just the grape in it. The cupcake wines, Moscato d'Asti's got like a little bit of bubbly, I think, to it, or it should anyway. And that's just talking about the grape varietal there. Moscato's known for being a little bit of a dessert wine.
And I have a sweet tooth, so that makes complete sense as to why I love that wine.
Yeah, it's known for being very sweet. The Red Velvet Cupcake, it's interesting that you like that one, actually, because I wouldn't think that one would be as sweet. It's a Zinfandel Merlot and a Petite Syrah, which will give it some jamminess, but also that Merlot is going to make it a little bit drier. But that's interesting that, that's another one that you really seem to enjoy.
It's a new thing. I tell everyone I must be getting older. It's because it's red, and it is a little bit drier than what I'm used to. It's not the sangrias or the Pinot Grigios that I've been drinking, and so I blame it on age. But I seem to really like it.
Good.
I found this great article I wanted to share with you. As the wine guy, it has to do with millennials and wine. So millennials and wine, yes. Well, there's 62 million millennials in America who are old enough to drink. And because of that, it seems that they're rapidly changing the way wine is marketed. Baby boomers still lead in wine consumption, but millennials, people who were born in the early 1980s to 2000, are the fastest growing demographic. So these are 5 ways that millennials are influencing the wine world. So I want to get your take on this, okay? All right, so bang for the buck. Millennials, whose budgets are more limited than boomers, don't show off by bringing the most expensive bottle of wine to the party. They choose bottles in the $10 to $12 range for everyday consumption and rarely go higher than $20 for a special occasion. Rather than splurging, they rely on the resources at hand to select value-focused wines crafted from unique grape varietals in reputable regions. Do you see that in your store?
Yeah, I think quite a bit. Yeah, we definitely see that big time. I mean, the trend for, I think, most people, and some of this is our store and location as far as the brick and mortar, but I think by and large it's also symptomatic of, what that article was kind of indicating. I talk to my friends in Ohio, or I talk to people in different places, and the 2 or 3 things that you find, and especially in online marketing, is that people, want that most bang for your buck, and that's really what our store is about, and that's kind of what we focus on. We've got, for instance, like a $8 California Chardonnay or $9 California Chardonnay that is just like so good. It's a little oak, it's a little butter, it's a little fruit, it's nothing crazy, but incredibly well balanced for what you're getting for $9, especially for California, which is really, really impressive. And I say especially for California because a lot of times what you get is they'll use oak chips and other things that really bring out one dominant flavor. If it's oak, or maybe it's super fruity, but you don't have a lot of other stuff, and so there's not a lot of contrast. But our $10 selection is definitely what moves the most. When I talk with people about a special occasion, unless it's something where somebody's getting a gift, maybe for somebody older, I've noticed they'll sometimes spend more, but otherwise it's really about, even a $20 bottle. We've got a $20 2003 Super Tuscan that, people are like kind of impressed by because, they hear an older vintage and they think, that's not a lot of money for an older vintage. Because everyone that, has heard anything about wine knows, older wine, sometimes better, that kind of thing.
Is that always the case?
No, definitely not. Because you get stuff that, take a 2007 Muscadet or something, or a 2007 Vino Verde, and it's going to be god-awful because those are meant to be drunk right away. It's the same thing as like this whole perception about the screw cap. A screw cap is an inferior wine or something, and it's simply not the case. It's like...
I am so happy you're saying that because when I go to a party and I bring wine, I rarely grab a screw cap because I don't want to be judged.
Yeah, no, screw cap wines can be great. The bottom line is very simple. A, cork is very expensive, and it's in limited supply. And B, the only reason you really need a cork in wine is if you're going to let it sit for a while. And by a while, I mean 5 years.
Oh wow,
something like that. If you have a screw cap, obviously you want to drink that sooner than later. Within probably the first year, but. Anything made with a screw cap, for the most part, it's because you're supposed to drink it now and you're not going to sit on it.
And so once you open a bottle of wine that has a screw cap, how long is it good after
screw
opening
cap
it? Yes.
For screw cap or cork.
Mm-hmm.
Really, once you open something, it's like 2 days.
Okay, that's what I've always heard.
Yeah, anyone that really wants to stretch out a bottle, maybe they will have one, on Wednesday or something, and they're not going to open it again until Saturday. Anyone that kind of does that and ends up throwing out wine should definitely make an investment in a vacuum. It's like this little thing that just the top goes on and you pull air out of the bottle basically, and it keeps it fresh for another couple days. And so you can use this vacuum and it'll keep the wine fresh for, maybe a week or so, depending on what it is. If it's a white and you keep it in the fridge, it'll definitely stay for a week. If it's a red and your house isn't too hot and you use the vacuum, it'll stay probably about 5 days, 6 days before it gets questionable.
How do you know when it's questionable?
They smell and taste very vinegary. It'll turn more and more into vinegar, red wine vinegar or whatever. But that's kind of what ends up happening is it starts oxidizing, and that's the sense that you kind of get.
And what's the difference in a synthetic cork and a cork?
You know what? I wish I knew. I couldn't speak super knowledgeably about that. If you give me one moment.
No problem. The reason is I ask because when I buy the cupcake Moscato, it's an actual cork. But when I buy the red velvet cupcake, then it's a synthetic cork. And so I've always wondered, they're coming from the same brand. So my brain thinks, why? Why are they choosing to do two different corks?
So one thing I know for sure is that, again, real cork takes a very, very long time to grow. I can't remember. I feel like it's like 10 years or something, or 20 years for a cork tree to be ready to produce cork. Synthetic, I think one or two things is it's just like the screw cap. Personally, I wouldn't want a synthetic cork being left in something I'm going to drink in 10 years because I have no idea, what that synthetic cork is actually doing to the wine in the bottle.
Yeah.
You think about it, and that cork is sitting in contact with your wine for however long. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing for you. But, in general, I think some of it is also about the fact that synthetic is probably easier to produce, and in some ways, even though it's made from chemicals and stuff, it's going to be more environmentally friendly because they're not having to cut down a ton of cork oaks, in order to produce these.
Right. Another thing in this article about millennials and wine, it's the sweet spot. Millennials prefer wines with less tannin and more sugar and are developing a taste for sparkling sweet wines, including Moscato d'Asti, Prosecco, and even Sangria. Moscato leads the pack. Sales of Italian imports were up almost 27% last year. Now producers from other regions are adding sweet sparkling wines to their lineups. Are you seeing that as well? I know I love a good Prosecco.
Yeah, Prosecco is like huge. I think everyone loves Prosecco, and
it's the bubbly.
It's definitely a big mover for us. As far as the Moscato d'Asti, I see that to some extent. People I've noticed that are not super accustomed to drinking wine tend to gravitate toward those.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really explain that, to be honest, because when I started drinking wine, I only preferred red, and then I didn't like white until much later. Yeah, but it just, it depends. So I've seen that as far as Prosecco goes, but I haven't seen young people gravitating a lot towards sweet wine overall.
And then surfing for wine. Thanks to the internet, wine lovers no longer have to take a costly trip to California or France to learn how wine is made. They can simply watch a YouTube video or connect with their Dan Deckers to learn about wine. And there's apps out there that allows users to learn about specific wines and keep track of the ones they like. Do you have any of these apps on your phone?
I do. I have Delectable.
That is the one listed. And what was the other one?
The Vino.
Those are the two listed in the article. I wanted to check. I was checking.
Yeah.
So those matched up. So how do these apps work?
They're very similar, but also have some distinct differences as well. The basis is that you have a wine, you like it, you take a picture of it, or maybe you're just in the store shopping around and you take a picture of it. And through this picture, it has a label match where it'll find the wine that you're looking at, and you